Next, Kris Walser, who announces these games at Greensboro Sports Radio. Well, I learned a lot about James. James is a sports
How about
reporter.
that?
Got his own site,
always
man.
looking for free help, aren't you?
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Get this guy.
Andy,
some
good to see
exposure.
you, my friend.
Always, Kris. Good to see you as well. Hope
you
that's
know,
short.
Andy Durham, Kris Walser, two faces made for radio.
Absolutely. As the years go on, it gets more and more apropos.
Yeah, I think the Woods of Terror is probably going to be Johnny Roscoe Stadium on the 28th of October, I'm afraid.
They may not go to the Woods of Terror. They may divert themselves down Church Street, make a left there on Spencer Dixon Road and go right to the school.
They might just have it right there at Johnny Roscoe Field. They're having a tough time up there in Northern Guilford, which most of us thought that they might.
Yeah.
You know, after the coaching change.
It's almost like year one this year. Back to what it would have been like in the beginning.
Yeah, it sure is. What you want to talk about? We got all kinds of stuff going on.
We're loaded down. First of all, how did Northeast get that win last week? First win of the year against Rockingham County.
What a great game. I mean, it was great atmosphere, very hot. I mean, you were out there calling games too. We actually were in an air-conditioned booth, and that was awesome. Folks up there at Rockingham County were great to us once again. And they came out, and it was 14-7 at halftime.
You guys were up or down?
They're down 14-7. So G. Simpson did not start the game. Tariq Ridges started at quarterback. Drove down. They said number 35. That's Noah Priester. Noah Priester had a touchdown that first half, and then G. Simpson came out and started the second half. And they only had the ball 4 times in that second half, but he was able. G. Simpson was able to lead them down and scored a touchdown. He ran one in the third quarter, and then crunch time when you've seen them fold up the tent. I mean, I've called, 15 of their games now, and I've seen them fold the tent up going down the stretch, and they did not fold up. G led them down the field, threw a great pass to Jeremiah Praylor in the end zone. It was like 6:28 to play in the game, and that the defense shut them out second half.
So the defense was just as big a part of that game as the offense
Absolutely, they were. And I think the official numbers on G. Simpson for that game was 7 for 9 for 127 yards, passing and a touchdown, and he had 13 rushes for 89 yards, I want to say.
Even though he only played a half, one of his better games of the year.
It was, and he showed a lot of leadership out there. I cannot tell you how he looked. The Ragsdale game was tough on him. It was 41-0, and Ragsdale.
I learned about that game because you guys have put up a nice chunk of offense against High Point. It got beat, but had offense against High Point Central against Ragsdale. The offense, and I've been putting numbers on the website this year, but I couldn't get Simpson's name up there yet because he hadn't hit 100 yards yet for the year. For the year after last year, probably 300 yards in the first 3 games or more.
In that High Point Central game, it was like inside of a minute to play, and it was fourth and 7 from the 19-yard line for them, down 8 points. So they threw an interception. G. Simpson threw an interception that was returned back for a touchdown. So that's the reason why there was the 15-point or 14-point disparity in that game. And so it was a lot closer than it appeared if you're just looking at box scores. So, but they. His leadership really came through. I mean, we know Rockingham County. You know, they've got a new coach this year, and they're rebuilding too. But I think that's definitely a big spark for them. They're never at a loss to get up for the Eastern Guilford game. That Eastern Guilford game last year, I finally got to do. Counting down the clock. 20, 19, 18. They were pushing, and they literally came about an inch and a half from winning. Northeast came about an inch and a half from winning that game. So
how did that game end last year? Take us back to the ending there. Take us back.
That game ended with a completion on the 1-yard line that appeared to me. I was actually called that game from the visitors.
You gotta remember that, yeah.
In the visitors stands, which was an awesome environment. Highly recommend doing it. It was really cool, and. So I had a really good vantage point, and it appeared to me that he got out of bounds. There was about 2 seconds left. It was 22-16, so touchdown wins it at that point. It would have been a first down, and the officials said that he did not get out of bounds. What do I know? What the officials call is what it was.
Now,
so
what was the final score of that game?
22-16.
Man, you guys were in that game last year against Eastern Guilford.
Oh, no, it literally that much. It was an inch. It was an inch. I went down. I know that they had the ball Northeast had the ball 3 times inside the 10, inside of 6 minutes to play.
3 times.
And failed to put points on the board.
How do you get back in that situation again tomorrow night and this time cash in? But first and foremost, how do you get back to that same situation? You need to get back to tomorrow night. How do you get back
and remember, rewind back to the Ragsdale game last year. If we're going apples to apples,
that was a close game.
It went to double overtime. I think it was 48-41 was the final. Then they come out and 41-0 this year. So, but once again, it's a new year. It's a new season. They've had a little bit of problems with their offensive line being able to adjust. I think that they finally got the right pieces in. They've called up one of the guys from the JV that's been able to really anchor that offensive line, and that's one of the difference.
The first part of your Coach Lippert is that was going to be the key to this team would be the offensive line.
They are undersized, and you think about undersized offensive lines. Teams like Oregon have made a living out of it. So you let you're small, but you're quick, so you got to let that be an advantage if you're faster than they are.
And you got to be strong to go with it.
Yeah, you do. And so they've had a little bit of problem being able to run between the tackles. They seem to be best when they get out on the edges, and especially if G's able to stretch the field like he did last week. I know that Mr. Artis was calling out some numbers. So another one, he said number 9, and that's Jamal Price. He's a senior, and he plays both ways, and he was very impactful last week.
One thing's for certain, I feel like you're going to see quite a bit of these young men we've talked to this season, Mr. Graves, and Mr. Howard, and Mr. Artis.
And I think Mr. Bryant Barr, we're going to be calling that number 5, Bryant Barr.
And that Zion Walker.
Zion Walker,
as he's healthy, you'll see a lot of him.
And I'm watching a lot of film on Eastern Guilford. The way they use Bryant Barr is the thing that I think is fascinating, because they'll put him in at quarterback and run a lot of quarterback sweeps with him, and then they'll put him in at running back, and then they'll put him in slot receiver, and then they'll put him. If I'm
like
Northeast,
at Northwest Guilford,
if I'm Northeast, I'm putting a spy on Mr. Barr. I'm going to make sure I know where he is. That's for certain.
Plus, they've got a good approach and a good attack. Since they've got Graves and Barr both, you get 2 different kind of looks.
Certainly, and typically when they have Bryant Barr in a quarterback, they typically run out of that formation. They like to do 3 wide receivers stacked right to the end of the line, and like to do the quarterback sweep to that side where he's got all those blockers. Mr. Graves throws the ball a lot more, but he doesn't stretch the field as much as I'd like. He doesn't make any mistakes, though. He does a lot of those short passes, and very determined and very disciplined.
We'll talk about the move. It took some discipline to make this move. It took some discipline to execute this move last week when Coach Lippert benched Gerald Simpson that first half. How key and how big was that move? And talk about Coach Lippert making that move.
Well, I think that a lot of that was they wanted to see how G would do just playing defense only. So after we kind of dug in after the game, and we've had 5 or 6 days to talk about it, me to ask some questions. It wasn't a discipline issue. It wasn't a grades issue. It wasn't an injury issue. It wasn't any of that stuff.
It wasn't a behavior situation.
No, it wasn't.
We got to try something. That's what
they brought Tariq in, who was the quarterback on the JV squad last year, led them 7-3. Brought him in, and you know what? When G came out the second half, where he has faded in some of the games, where he obviously was getting tired, he was rested and fresh, where the other team was getting tired.
He was starting the game out from that point,
right?
Square one, ground zero for him, and went straight ahead.
Yeah,
it gave him a good beginning,
right?
Kind of a new beginning.
And I think that it was a fantastic move. I know that there was a lot of people involved with making that decision, and it was. I wouldn't be surprised if you saw it again.
What play or series of plays sealed that win for you guys? Was there a certain play or a series of plays that sealed that win?
I was getting very worried when it was. It was 20-14. We're like under 5 minutes to play, and so Northeast had already scored the touchdown. They got the extra point blocked, so now it's 20-14, and So Rockingham County gets the ball back, and there was a 4th and 2 from the 42-yard line of the Cougars. So they were able to convert that 4th down, and I was like, oh boy, here we go again, because last year they were down 13 points with under 6 minutes to play.
They made the run.
Yeah, and they came back and won that game by 1. So then you reset the downs, and I tell you what, Brevin Allen and Amin El-Amrani, Jared Torrance was all right there. Shoot, I know I'm forgetting some names to mention, but that defense was able to hold them. It was 4th and 17. They had to go for it, and actually G. Simpson came in and broke that pass up that would have converted that 4th and 17. And I actually gave G. Simpson player of the game last week for his work on both sides of the ball.
Right.
And that's number 12 if you're at the game tomorrow night, or if you're listening, we call him G most of the time. He goes by G. His name's Gerald Simpson, and we talked about it on the radio. My real name is Christopher, and I don't go by Christopher. If you yelled Christopher, I wouldn't answer to it. He goes by G, so we call him G.
Gotcha. Can Northeast now come back and get a follow-up? They got to get the follow-up tonight. Can they get the follow-up win? That's the big question. Win the first one of the year. Or can you follow that up with another victory?
I think,
and you're playing your 20-yard rivals here.
Yeah, I think it's winnable. They got to have a lot of things go in their favor. No special teams mistakes. That's been one of those things, like beating the dead drum. It's they've had too many special teams mistakes that get them out of games, and then it snowballs on them. If they can clean up the special teams, no kickoff returns for touchdowns, no punt blocks.
What was the team attitude like coming out of those losses? Had the guys gotten down on themselves?
No,
dragging? You felt they were still together?
I think that they're still together, and I think that that win really helped. That's the first win they had since October 2nd of last year against in that McMichael game, and that was their first win since the McMichael game the following year. So some of those guys had been through, these
JV kids, though, they've had a lot of success.
Yeah, they really
have been down the good road.
And that was one of the reasons why Coach Lippard kept a lot of those guys down as sophomores last year, to give them a taste of what it's like to win, to let them be successful. Andy, just being in sports, winning breeds winning and losing breeds losing. It's really
JV
hard.
teams went 2-1, and they won a conference game this year. They're in pretty good shape right now too, playing.
Yeah, they're playing very well.
Got a big game tonight, I'm sure.
Yeah, and they're playing Eastern Guilford at Eastern Guilford, so I'm looking forward to seeing those score updates.
Yeah, Coach Kris Suggs doing a good job of that.
He's doing an awesome job, and one of the things different for this year is Coach Lippard is actually calling the games from the booth and relaying down to Coach Suggs, to give Coach Suggs the ability to see what it's like to run the team from the sidelines yourself. Coach Lippard is very involved on what's happening on every play. He's relaying everything down. I've had the opportunity to go up the past 2 JV games, go up and sit in the booth with him, and Coach Lippard came over with us and called the Andrews games in the playoffs, and I'm not going to say I was totally responsible for that switch up on JV, but the things that you can see from up in that booth, the things that he was able to see in those Andrews games, I thought he did an awesome job, and I'm trying to recruit him to come down with us next Friday for the Dudley game. It's their off night, but depends on his wife wants to go to the beach or not. They don't get many Friday nights off this time of year, so we'll see. There's somebody I want to talk about.
Who's that?
It's Parkland High School. That was their very first game this year against Northeast. What Coach Samick has got going on over there, they are currently 4-0.
That's a good start for him.
And they were 3-8 last year. For his first season there, they were 0-11.
So he's already topped last year's win total.
Right, and I think it's actually the tied for the past 3 years combined. And then they've got to go. They got 3 guys: Tyus Sharp and Quante Young, number 10. I believe he's going to App State next year. He's a senior, and a sophomore, Jaquez Roseboro. They play Ashbrook at Ashbrook this week, and next week they're at West Forsyth. That's going to be their test game right there. So that I think that they're going to beat Ashbrook.
West Forsyth's a beatable team, though. They're 1-3 right now.
I think so too. And just mark my words right now that I believe at this point Parkland's going to be 9-0 going in their last two games, going against North Davison at home and then at Davie County. And that if you want to see a good local game, you want to mark your calendar for November 4th, you look for that Parkland Davie County game. But I couldn't say enough about what Coach Samick has done over
Coach
there.
Samick has been around the horn. He was at Grimsley for a couple of years, and he went from there to, I think, Southwest Randolph, and came back to Parkland. He'd been at Forsyth County before Grimsley, so I think he wanted to get back to Forsyth County. At one time, Parkland years ago, state championship team, they had titles over there, and he's bringing this team back.
They are back.
And it's
they are
not
back.
easy.
And I will say that one of the messages that you can get out of that a lot of these teams, especially when they're struggling in these schools, that his first year there, he was 0-11, then his next year was 3-8, that I know that a lot of schools might have pulled the plug on the coach. They might have fired him and then have been right back into the same situation. But they were able to work it out. And I think that you have to give a coach a minimum of 3 or 4 years to be able to see what direction that program's really going.
What's the mood and the spirit like for Coach Lippert right now? How he's approaching? He's approaching pretty strong still, I'm sure.
Yeah. I mean, and still upbeat. If you look at what they've got.
He's excited about this game tomorrow night.
They're very excited. And then, this will be their second conference game. And then next week they got a bye. And then you look at their, coming off of their bye, they got McMichael, at Moorhead, and then Williams. And all those games are winnable. That Williams team.
Those first two are games that you feel like before the season, you mark those as games that we've got to win.
Oh, yeah.
You got to win that McMichael game. You got to win those.
McMichael, Moorhead, and
Williams is tougher than they've been in the past.
Well, and it's all about the defense with them. You look at they're not going to put a lot of points up on the board.
7 points against Northern. That was it.
7-3 was the final against Northern, but they held them to 3 points.
So the defense got the job done.
But they're Burlington Williams coming out 4-0, and then after that Williams game, you got Northern, and then their last 2 games is Western Alamance, Eastern Alamance.
Playing the toughest teams last. If you look at before the year, I like the way the schedule lines up.
Well, except for having to play those 3 4A teams to start the season. I mean, they have Parkland, High Point Central,
your first game of your real season was last week.
Right, and then they started off great. They did the Rockingham County, and then with Eastern this week.
A lot to be done. If you beat Eastern, you're an unbeaten team. Plus, you get that conference win. That'd be huge.
And if you look at the polls right now, they've got Eastern Guilford ranked as number 8, state 3A. So I mean, they're a good, solid team, and that would be definitely a marquee win for the program.
What about some surprise players from Northeast? You knew a lot about some of these guys coming back from last year. Who's some surprises?
I have been really, really impressed, and he's a senior, but Jeremiah Praler has really come in and shown a lot of leadership. I expect a little bit more out of Tobias Floyd, but he has been battling a little bit of injury. Oh gosh, Mean Elamrani has really that defensive end. He has really knocked it out of the park.
Is he a guy you thought about seeing coming back this year?
He was not. He wasn't even on my radar. And then Brevin Allen, of course. I mean, he's. What he did last year as a sophomore, he came in his very first game against High Point Central and had 10 tackles, I think 4 for loss, and was the defensive player of that game in his very first start as a varsity player. So, and I know that he's on a lot of scouts' watch lists. Brevin Allen,
kid too.
Yeah, he's 6'3", I think 230. I think he's listed at 221, but he's got to be 230, 235 by now.
What about last week? You go back to the game at Rockingham County. Coach Tommy Pursley pops up last week at that game.
How about that?
Seemed to be in good spirits. You were telling us about.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I got to talk to Coach Pursley after the game. He was really pumped up and excited. He got to talk with the players. He talked a long time. We stood.
Talked to some of the Ram players.
Oh yeah.
And brought him in. So was the man.
Well, no, after the game he came down on the field with the players and he talked to the coaches and I got to speak with him. He told me to tell you hello. He said that he's known you for many moons.
I think he's doing a good job at Tuscola.
He is. How about that? I think I got Tuscola's ranked 14th in the state 3A, and they're undefeated 4-0.
Big matchup of Pisgah. Not sure they played him. That's their big rival.
Yeah, Pisgah's on their way back, too. Last year they had a very good year. They had been down for a little while. I know a little bit about that area because Coach Lippard was the coach at Brevard before he came to Northeast. And he and Coach Persley developed a relationship when he was at Brevard. And, that Coach Persley's been a mentor of Coach Lippard's for a long time. So you could stretch to imagine that he probably had a lot to do with getting Coach Lippard to Northeast.
Probably felt pretty good again for Coach Lippard and around people around, especially like Coach Suggs who played for Coach Pers and all those guys. See him come in there last week. Felt good to see him at the game.
Oh yeah, it was great. It was their bye week at Tuscola, and apparently. Coach Persley doesn't have to do a lot of teaching and stuff. He's doing mostly just coaching football. So
feel good.
It's nice for him to get back, and sounds like they are looking to come back to Guilford County as soon as they can, though.
When he finishes up.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I don't think they could stay away.
How about what's it going to take for Northeast to finish 5-5 or 6-5? Depending on the number of games they play, probably played 11. What's it going to take to finish with a win record this year? I know those key games that you got to win tomorrow night, plus you got that stretch with McMichael and Moorhead, got to win those games. What's it going to take to run this thing and run the table and do a good job?
Well, that Williams game at home,
that's a key factor.
That's going to be the key of getting there.
You got Northeast, you got McMichael, you got Moorhead. Those are 3 games right there.
And then,
you got
Williams, and then at Northern. And as we all know, Northern's probably, if you're going to beat them and beat them at home, this is probably going to be your year to do it.
If you could beat Northeast, want to beat Northeast, also knock off McMichael, Moorhead, Williams, and Northern. Win those 5 games, you guys are 6-5.
And then the Rockingham County.
Wow, that's something, isn't it?
Yeah, and then that puts up. Then you got Western Alamance has to come into Bill Bookout Stadium, the second to last game of the year.
Those wins on your belt by then, that'd be interesting.
And then it could be very interesting.
Bottom line is right now you got to beat Northeast.
Eastern.
Northeast has got to beat Eastern. All my teams back and forth.
That's correct.
You got to beat those Wildcats tomorrow night.
And how nice was it to hear from Tommy Grayson tonight? That just being in the same room as a legend,
Interesting,
it was really cool, going.
Glad all the guys got the stadium name right too.
Right. Yeah, they better got that one right. That would have been bad.
Right. Good man, though, and boy, he's going to the Hall of Fame.
Oh yeah, I know. I kind of felt like coming in after Tommy Grayson playing for the Mud Hens. I kind of felt like Corporal Klinger, just somebody who's a big fan.
He used to wear that cap, didn't he?
Yeah. Oh yeah, he was a big Toledo Mud Hens fan. He was from Toledo in the show in MASH, and we're probably talking over some of the kids' heads right now. But go back and watch MASH, and you'll know. I'm not going to wear a dress though. I'm not trying to get the Section 8.
It's probably going to be available somewhere too. That MASH program somewhere.
Oh yeah, I'm sure you can find it on Netflix. I'm sure it's on there somewhere.
What do you see being the big play tomorrow night in the game? What's going to be the big play in tomorrow night's game? Who's going to be the big player making that big play for the Rams?
Well, I'm going to go ahead and put it on the shoulders of G. Simpson. If they're going to win, it's going to revolve around G. Simpson. So it's going to come down to that defense being able to stop Bryant Barr and Dom Graves and company, and then having the offense in the position to really make something happen. So I don't think you're going to have any problem with the defense playing hard tomorrow.
Do you see Simpson starting the game or coming on in the second half?
I don't know, and I haven't asked that question. I guess it's going to be
who's the starting pitcher is going to be. Who's the starting pitcher going to be? Or is it going to be the relief pitcher?
I would assume that G's going to start the game.
Will announce that before the game or game?
If he does, I will make sure to send you a text and let you know, like I did last week. Because I literally found out about 6:15 that Tariq Ridge is going to be starting. So we'll find out. We'll see. I don't know. I'm sure that adds a little bit of a wrinkle, and I'm sure there's a little bit of showmanship in there for Coach Lippard, not wanting to show all your cards either. They want to win that Eastern Guilford game. That's their arch rival. So last year they had a little bit of showmanship before the start of that game. Most teams usually get to the stadium about 5 o'clock, 4:30, get out and stretch. The kickoff was at 7:30, and the bus rolled in about 7:10 to the stadium.
At Eastern.
Yeah, Northeast bus rolled in, and they walked off, and because they just warmed up and everything over at Northeast, it's about a 15-minute ride over.
Went to the game.
Yep. They didn't want they didn't want them to get too caught up with everything going on over at Eastern because the crowd was.
How are they going to get around that tomorrow night? What's going to be the approach, you think?
I think that they're probably
going the guys back in the locker room till late.
I don't know. I think they might come out early. They might enjoy the atmosphere. They might come out and enjoy the atmosphere. I expect it to be a packed house, and the Ram Rowdies out there going to be bringing the noise. I'm sure it's going to be tough on offense for Eastern. I'm sure they're going to be very loud.
Have you got any pro games for us this week? Can you give us any upset specials in pro games?
Upset specials at Tampa Bay game. Tampa Bay, Arizona, I believe is the game.
That's the game?
Yeah, Tampa Bay. I think, boy.
Yeah, Jameis Winston last week had a huge week, didn't he?
How would the Arizona Cardinals feel starting 0-2 both home games? I mean, they might be overreaction Monday there, and we can go ahead and say that I did win the Pick'em League this week.
I gave you a prize.
You did. I got
How many
13.
games did you guys have?
It was 16 games, and I got 13
and 3.
Yeah,
Not
13
bad.
and 3. So I was very pleased. And Tampa Bay was one of the teams that I missed last week, so I'm not going to make that same mistake.
Pick them this week to win,
I think
then?
so. I think I'm going to pick Tampa Bay
How
to
about the
win.
Panthers this week against San Fran? You're playing the team of Colin Kaepernick coming to Charlotte. That may cause maybe a little bit of.
It's actually going to be Blaine Gabbert starting. You know,
Yeah, he's been the starter. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So
Kaepernick's been number 2, but he's kind of been the obstacle right there for the team as far as attention's been given toward him.
Sure.
But what about the Panthers? And
I think
do you think they win this week?
I think they roll. They roll on
They
them.
need to roll. They need to get that going.
Yeah, and I mean that game last week was fantastic.
Well, see, I'm still sore watching those hits that Cam Newton took.
Oh
My head
yeah,
hurts. I got a headache.
yeah, and you know with everything going around the league, and it trickles all the way down into the sports that we cover with concussions and all that. That I mean, he clearly was hurting at the end of that game, and you don't want to see anybody be hurt permanently, and they have proven that those head hits can hurt you permanently.
No doubt. So tomorrow night you guys are set to go at about 7 p.m.
Yeah, we will go our pregame at 7 and kick off at 7:30. The coach's show will start about 10 minutes after 7. I like to try to give folks the chance to log on and or if they're listening in the stadium on 97.7 FM, and it's about I think we're about 13 minutes this week on the coach's show, so a little longer. Last week he cut it to about 7.5. He didn't want to talk much about that 41-0 Ragsdale score, so understandable. Had a lot more to talk about this week.
I'm sure.
And so we recorded that last night. I went over after practice and watched some of the practice with them, and guys look good. They're fired up. They're ready to go.
And again, you guys next week will be down in Rockingham to cover
How about
the
that?
Richmond County Dudley game.
Kind of like getting called up to the big leagues, Andy.
Absolutely.
Getting ready to go watch a top 20 matchup. Looks like both those teams. Well, Dudley's probably going to be 5-0 after this week,
Should
and
be.
then 4-1 for Richmond County, and their only losses to Charlotte Butler.
By 1 point.
Yeah, by 1 point, 42-41.
Wow,
Yeah,
game.
and also Charlotte Butler is the only loss for Western Alamance too.
That's interesting.
Yep, and then
Coach Hales has got a heck of a team at Butler.
Matthews.
He's got Huff this week, which is a great game. That's a great
Right,
matchup.
and then Matthews Butler, their only loss is to Mallard Creek, who is in the top 10 in the nation.
Who's got the number 1 team in South Carolina this week, playing that South Point team.
Yeah, that's going to be a fantastic game.
That's going to be that's like number 1 in South Carolina versus number 1 in Northwest. It's going to be a great matchup down there.
That's going to be fantastic. There's some great football on it. It's great. It's great to be back. If we can only get the fall temperatures to follow, you know,
They're
still
coming sometime this weekend.
Yeah, I sure hope so. I'd sure like to have some cooler temperatures for tomorrow, but
You've got it tomorrow night, and you got it next week, and you got it covered.
yeah.
Chris, good work.
Thank you, sir.
Pass
Thanks
good
for
work
having
on
me
to
on.
Coach Suggs.
And
Pass good work to Coach Liberty.
make sure to tune in and listen to us on Greensboro Sports Radio Stream 2.
And you can go back and check it out again
and
after the game is
replay.
over as well.
Yep. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Chris. Good job as always.